Hello, everyone. We're here with Remy Carpedita, the CEO of Esprezzo, and today we're going to be talking about his company. So, Remy, can you give us a brief introduction?
Yeah, welcome everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Remy Carpenter. I'm the founder and CEO of Esprezzo, a blockchain middleware platform looking to make blockchain development more accessible to more engineers. We're based out of the Caymans, Boston, and San Francisco. And yeah, excited to be on today.
Cool. So, Remy, can you tell us more about Esprezzo and sort of the context for which you guys are creating your platform?
Yeah, for sure. So Espresso was born out of some pain points we kind of dealt with internally as a team. Um, Over the past several years, I've been running another company called Campus Tap, and the original goal there was to replace student identity with smartphone technology and NFC chips in particular.
What kind of
Um, NFC, near field communication chips, similar technology that powers Apple Pay. And we had that concept kind of envisioned about 7, 8 years ago, actually. And we built out a prototype that was a bit ahead of its time. It impressed a lot of the schools, but the iPhone didn't come out to the technology until 3 years after we conceptualized it. And we pivoted and ended up building a mentoring platform for students and alumni. And we scaled that company to over 70 universities across the globe and over 1 million users. And ironically enough, we came back to the same issue, which was student identity. And a lot of the CIOs and CTOs of these companies wanted us to interface with these legacy single sign-on systems. And the issue for us as a small startup was kind of bandwidth and having to support legacy systems would slow down our development processes. So we said maybe we can get back to our roots and fix identity, but instead of using NFC chips and smartphones, let's use the blockchain. And as we started that project, we quickly realized that a lot of the tools that we were accustomed to, a lot of the interfaces that we had for our front end team didn't exist in the blockchain world. So we wanted to make it a bit more accessible for our front end engineers to help and participate in the development of that identity solution. And that's when we started building out some middleware components. And that's more or less kind of how we kind of conceptualized Espresso.
can you say
We realized,
middleware?
sorry?
Can you say more about middleware?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, one of the bigger things we wanted to focus on and kind of pivot into instead of building out this identity solution on the blockchain, we wanted to build out a deeper level infrastructure or tools that developers are already accustomed to in the Web 2.0 space. So, what that entails is a library of SDKs and command line tools that will make it extremely accessible for engineers to come on, whether they're familiar with blockchain or not, but creating this kind of familiar environment they're already accustomed to in the blockchain realm. And what we do from there, a developer can come in, name their application, pick their SDK, which is a kind of software library. They can also pick which blockchain they want to interface with. Right now, Ethereum, VeChain are kind of the core of the focus. In addition to that, we present them an easy API layer that they can easily identify which data should live on and off chain. So these are, not super unique development tools in the Web 2.0 space, but we still haven't seen a solution that kind of addresses these larger problems on the in the blockchain realm. So that's what we're doing. We want to make it more accessible. We want to activate or enable more developers to enter the space, whether that be a startup, one-off developer, a freelance developer, or an entire enterprise team.
Okay, so from what I understand, your business model is sort of similar to GitHub's.
More, I'd say, along the lines of Firebase. So there's a SaaS component where we will use our tokens to validate each transaction or each API call. Um, in addition, we will also be having a marketplace similar to kind of attribute it to like a Salesforce type marketplace where there's these pre-built components that developers could leverage. And we'll have our own first-party components. Some of the first things we're working on now is a library of smart contracts that people can leverage for specific use cases, whether it be voting or escrow or supply chain, et cetera. And then in addition, third parties can come in and add components as well. So they could either keep them open source or free, or they could charge a specific amount of tokens for them as well.
Okay, cool. So can you sort of I don't know, so you're saying that they're going to pay for the tools that you guys are offering. Um, and why couldn't those tools be free?
The tools themselves are free. Once they want to move into a production environment and start expending, kind of leveraging our API um, to run in the background and power some of their data layers, that's what we would charge. It's similar to like Ethereum and gas. Like each data transaction will be kind of metered through the token, which is more or less the kind of use case of the system. It's also abuse mitigation. So one of the big things we want to avoid are people kind of larger scale DDoS attacks, et cetera, that happen all over the web today. You would need acquire, own a certain amount of tokens to run the actual system. So it adds an additional layer of security as well.
Okay, cool. So I heard you guys have a partnership with VeChain.
Yep.
Can you tell us more about that partnership? What you're going to be working on, and potentially what the major terms of the partnership are?
Yeah, for sure. So VeChain partnership is our latest announcement. We're really excited about it. We've been following their project for quite some time, and we look at kind of the original blockchains and Bitcoin and Ethereum and kind of paving the way. Yep.
Can you like maybe say what VeChain does briefly as well, so that our
Yeah. Yep, I'll get there in just a sec. So, kind of the original blockchains out there, Bitcoin and Ethereum, paved the way to where we are today, and Ethereum being the first programmable blockchain allowing decentralized applications to exist. VeChain takes a lot of those core concepts and takes it to a level that can scale into a production use case, whether it be in the enterprise space or a consumer use case. And what that means is a next generation blockchain with enhanced security, faster transaction speeds, and more transactions per second on the whole. They've also created a pretty large ecosystem of partners, ranging from companies like PwC to BMW, et cetera. So they are really kind of, I think the one interesting thing about them as well is their governance model. We've seen the purely decentralized nature of Bitcoin and Ethereum have pros and cons, but I think from the enterprise space, there is a blend of total decentralization, but also a bit of centralization to kind of bridge the gap for enterprises. And we believe that's a great path forward to move into the enterprise space, which I genuinely believe, and Sunny as well, believe that enterprise in the beginning will be the core market that will leverage the blockchain for production level use cases before it hits the consumer area, but I don't think it'll be too far behind.
Okay. So what are the parameters for your partnership with them?
Yeah, so one of the goals of VeChain is to increase awareness of their community, but also get more people building applications on VeChain. So one of the things we're working on with them is kind of creating this gateway or portal where people can come on and based on their use case, they could say, we want to build a supply chain use case with extremely high performance. We'd recommend VeChain through Esprezzo as the blockchain to connect to. We provide a library of software development kits and an API that directly interfaces with VeChain, which in return is created kind of this pre-built scaffolding of a smart contract that people could easily deploy against VeChain as well. On top of that, on top of the technical integration, we're also working on, we're actually running our token sale through VeChain. So we'll not be running it against Ethereum, which is pretty unique. I think we're the third or fourth project to be doing this officially on VeChain. So we're excited about that. And yeah, that's more or less the parameters. They're helping with some, we're getting access to their community, some of their masternode holders as well. So there's a pretty good kind of balance between us just being a project running against VeChain, but also getting access to some of their larger community members as well, which have kind of really been some of the backbone of the VeChain success to date.
That's really cool. So are there any financial parameters for your relationship with them, or is it mostly you?
No, it's there's going to be obviously co-marketing opportunities, et cetera. Running the ICO on VeChain obviously is a pretty big shift. We were originally going to do it on Ethereum, but in terms of the other things, primarily technical integration, bolstering their ecosystem, as well as when available, deploying smart contracts onto their chain and allowing any developer to do that extremely simply and easily.
Okay, so I've seen a bunch of other, not a bunch, but a few other middleware companies.
Sure.
And I was wondering if, you guys were the only one VeChain was working with, or if there were, or even if you would know that, right?
Yeah, right now we are the first infrastructure company interfacing with VeChain, so that would be yes. There are a handful of other, quote unquote middleware platforms, DApp builders, sidechain protocols like Lisk and Arc, which is the interoperable kind of framework off of it. And I think it's there's a bunch of people out there. What we're realizing though is this industry still in its kind of nascent early stage, where there's plenty of room for opportunity and kind of next pushing this industry forward in a bigger way. And it's not just saying, hey, I can one click deploy a smart contract, which we still haven't seen yet. There's a lot of friction involved in a lot of these other use cases where you need wallets, you need crypto, you need to trade that crypto to get into a particular wallet. To deploy a smart contract, you need to set up a MetaMask and verify that. And so there's this exorbitant level of friction that we're seeing across the board in the blockchain space that we want to remove. And we believe we're going to be one of the first people to actually do that. And that's thanks to our co-founder and CTO, AJ, who's been in this space a long time. And the goal is to kind of do a lot of that legwork in the back end, where the front end developer or any developer doesn't need to worry about that, and we can handle that through automated back end services. So you can literally one click deploy a smart contract without needing to interface with these third party intermediaries that slow down development time. So that's something we're really excited about. There's definitely a bunch there, and even in the centralized web world, like Firebase, they offer a backend in a box, which is something similar we're doing. But the unique thing is we're doing that through smart contracts and a decentralized nature. So that's the bigger differentiator out there for us. And I think that marketplace will also expand the opportunity for us to create additional interfaces to whether it be future blockchains, whether it be additional tools or authentication frameworks people can leverage, whether that be decentralized, smaller plugins that people can leverage as well for their application. It'll be a DApp marketplace in a sense.
Okay, so when is your ICO? When do you guys go live?
Yeah, so we're in a private sale right now. That's happening as we speak. In terms of the next sale, it'll be for the VeChain community, their master node holders, which will be in later July. And then we're targeting a community sale, a public sale in the end of August into September.
Okay. And when is the platform going to go live?
Yeah, so we've been running a lot of tests internally for the last several months, and then we're going to be opening up some access within the next month or two here, which we're really excited about. And that'll be primarily focused on kind of that DApp builder, simple contract deployment against different chains. That'll be the first version we release, and then we'll continue to iterate on that. And some of the other things we're working on is a really performant data layer that sits above. Think of it as kind of like a second layer solution, but for any blockchain. The thought process being that not every blockchain is performant enough, nor is it advantageous to store all that data on a blockchain. It's expensive and slow because of the cryptography and security.
Right.
So we have this kind of caching data store that could keep things moving extremely fast for data-rich applications, whether that be a supply chain with 10,000 transactions per second or a social network running against a blockchain.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So are there any companies that are working with VeChain that you guys have talked to about deploying their stuff already?
Not with VeChain in particular, or the other companies. So they're most of the companies that are interfacing right now in the ICO front are like Player and Safe Haven and OceanX are all in kind of development mode and I'm kind of fundraising mode. We were talking. I mean, we have some partnerships that we can't announce yet that we've been talking to and have had talks with VeChain about where there's opportunity to collaborate. And these would be some of our bigger partnerships that we're really excited about. Still early, but there's some big opportunity in the future to have some joint partnerships that can move the industry forward in a big way.
Awesome, awesome. So how's fundraising going? Do you guys like how
Good,
much
yeah.
in your private round? How much have you raised, and how much are you looking to raise in the ICO or the masternode holders, etc.?
Yeah, so all the I don't want to hash through all the details on this, but all the details can be found in the most recent Medium post we have out there. It goes into detail, timing, tranches, discounts, etc. All in that post, so I can share that if you want to put that in the link. I'm happy to do so. But yeah, that's all on there, and yeah, we're in the private sale. We already closed our friends and family round. That was the kind of what we've done over the last month or two, and then this private sale will be a pretty big chunk, and then the community round will obviously be the remainder. So. We're moving quickly. Right now, we're lining up some strategics is kind of where we are at in the process. And then it'll be starting to get some of the community involved in a bigger way is the next step.
Okay, awesome. And one last question: where do you see? How do you see? And this is a pretty broad question, but
Sure.
what are the most meaningful ways you think blockchain is going to affect society in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, no, I think it's a big question and something I was just talking about with my co-founder yesterday. And the tough thing now is we're living in this hype cycle, right? Where blockchain is, going to change the world, and everything needs to be on the blockchain. And
Yeah.
in reality, it doesn't. The blockchain's not great for everything. It's good for specific use cases, and I think more and more use cases will come up over time. I think right now where we are, we need this infrastructure. We need the tools and the foundation that allows blockchain to be scalable. That allows blockchain to be accessible from the majority of engineers. Right now, there's a fraction percent of engineers that can actually build on this technology. And we need these next generation blockchains to get a little bit further along. They're just launching now, which is exciting and great, but it's still super early for the industry. But I think as we look over the next 5 to 10 years, as this technology matures, as legitimate use cases get more light shed upon them, um, there's opportunity to disrupt some of the largest industries in the world. I think the supply chain, obviously being a massive one that's been talked about the most, is a no-brainer. But we're also talking things like digital identity, voting systems that haven't been altered, especially in the U.S., for decades. I mean, long, long time, and probably centuries if we really want to think about it. Um, and that's exciting. I think the government is like the sleeping giant behind everything that's going to be affecting or leveraging blockchain the most, because they're going to leapfrog.
I agree about
The,
that.
yeah, they're going to leapfrog themselves in the sense where a lot of the government hasn't even moved, from standard paper records into the cloud. It's still got a lot of stuff is actually paper record. So they're going to have to digitize that, skip over. I mean, cloud is just general concept, but they're going to be moving a lot of those records and stuff to the blockchain because it's a much more secure way to store some of this data. So I see that happening. I think things like identity make a lot of sense. Once digital identity becomes mainstream, that's going to activate and streamline a lot of processes moving forward, whether that be voting or escrow, et cetera, where you have this kind of one sole source identity that could be leveraged across a multitude of verticals. So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, the government will be embracing the technology, supply chain will be embracing the technology. And I think if we look a little bit, past the 5 year mark, we'll start to see consumer engagement. I think what's interesting about the blockchain is that it's not really a forward-facing technology like the internet. Like it's not a website or an application you necessarily interface with. The blockchain is the back end of the technology. It's the data layer. It's a way to store things in a more secure fashion and in a decentralized way. And that's not something the end user really cares about all too much. If they know that they're getting better security, that's great. But I don't think it's going to be top of mind being, is this a blockchain-based application? Because I don't want to use this other solution that's not. It's not going to be the driving factor in consumer decisions. But I think it'll be the subliminal thing in the back of their mind where they heard about it enough, like cloud computing. I don't think consumers, hey, is this built on the cloud? Like that's not even a question, and it's just assumed. So I think we'll get to that point in the consumer world as well. So I think it's interesting. It's not really. It's getting a lot of hype right now, which is good and bad. But at the same time, I think it'll mature into the point where it becomes something accustomed to like a cloud type of technology where it's just assumed or in the background and not necessarily the forefront of the conversation.
Cool. Well, thanks for the conversation, man. We're really excited to see where you guys go. We're keeping an eye on where you guys are doing. And yeah, have a good one.
Awesome, Edwin. Thanks for your time.